Hey, my name's Jack. I'm from the Motion Powerhouse team here at Canva. Today I have a bunch of exciting new updates for the next version of Quiver. These updates are going to make shooting your designs into Cavalry faster, smoother, and more powerful than ever before. Less friction, more motion. So let's get into it. We have a bunch of new features outlined by these funny little cursed names: complex paths, inner shadows, more shaders, aligned text, background blurs, and my favorite, emojis. Let's shoot this over into Cavalry and make sure that it works. I'm firing it towards. Nice. Everything has come in so quickly and exactly how I expected it to. It's important to note that when you're using this latest version, that you also update your Figma plugin as well. So if I was updating or installing the new version, I'd want to remove this first and then relink the latest version just so that everything works perfectly, because otherwise things are going to break. So to check, I can click the settings button here, version 1.6. Perfect. The first one I want to start talking about today is complex paths. So over into Cavalry, here we go. You might be thinking, don't we already have complex paths and Quiver already does this? Well, unfortunately, when our team was working with certain paths such as this that might have a gradient shader on the stroke or just a complex path, what Figma would do was it would outline this stroke. So it would actually come across more like this. Even though it is a singular path, as you can see, it would ignore that. So now when I bring this across, can see that is a full editable path, and then I can add additional points and I have full creative control. Sometimes our designers in particular might use a rounded corner on these types of shapes, just so that you don't run into this nasty little corner. So to account for that in Cavalry, we can sort of do the same thing, and Quiver does that logic for you. It applies a bevel to the shape to account for that rounded corner so that when it comes across, it's perfect. If I was to turn that off, again, you would see that I would get that same corner, the same with Figma. Next up, you can see that we have a new shader here. Let's get into that. I'll fire this next design across into Cavalry. Nice. Now, just as before, we have linear, radial shaders, but now we also have angular and diamond shaders. Diamond shaders are a funny one. I just included it to say that, look, we have them all covered now. You can see that when I toggle this down, when we're applying diamond shaders, they just get applied as a shape gradient with 4 sides, and there's a specific amount of rotation to sort of match what's going on over here. Angular shaders, in Figma for example, there's only 3 stops on this shader. There's some clever logic in, so there's actually 4 stops over here. So then you get that smooth transition through all of the colors to match exactly what's going on in this design. Now, if for whatever reason, if I had a design that had the sharp edge on the color like this, Quiver will bring it in like so. You might notice too that the shaders have an improved naming convention. This is a radial, it says a diamond, it says the first color stop and the last color stop, so you know clearly which is which. Next up, we have a really big one, background blurs. Now, when I fire it across, you might notice there is a new loader. You won't be able to click it until it's done what it needs to and then fires across over here. Now, when you use a background blur in Figma, the background blur gets applied to the shape, and that shape is aware of every single object that is behind it at all times. So for in this example, you can see I have frame 3 here, where the background blur is using that shape. And then when I move this around, it's only affecting this circle with this shader. If I move it onto anything else, it's not going to affect it. It's recognized and understood what is physically within the scene at that time of import. And it also works for more complex setups. In this example, this is a mock website. I have my overlay set up to be going over the header and the main image module. You can see that it's only affecting that header and then the image. There's also an overlay which I applied to it, so it's got a slight fill. That works as per normal and everything else. Next up, we also have inner shadows, so I'll fire that across super fast. When I come across into this design, spread is the big difference currently between Cavalry and Figma. I've got a spread of 10 here, and to understand how spread works, if I set the blur to 0, you can see that it's sort of just like an inner stroke, and then the blur is being applied onto that shape. As of my current version of Cavalry, version 2.5.4, I don't have spread inbuilt into my inner shadow. Now, thank you very much to the team at Cavalry because they've been actively working on this, and now in the next version should be implemented. I know that you guys can actually play with it in the beta version, but as of now, in the main build, we don't have spread. So to account for this, what Quiver will do, in this example, there's two inner shadows. One is targeting more of this shadow is targeting more of these. It doesn't work perfectly, but it gives you more of that spread effect. So in this example, I have two inner shadows. Both of them have spread. You can see that Quiver hasn't imported it with the spread at all. I would need 4 inner shadows to create that sort of mock spread effect. So if I just quickly apply those inner shadows, the shade disappears. Now, unfortunately, this is currently a bug within Cavalry. The team has fixed this, I believe, for the next version. But as of now, if we have 4 or more inner shadows, the shape will disappear. So in these situations, created the logic so that it will just leave the offset at 0. Next up, this is a huge one, and I think my most favorite, hence why I've left it till last. So we'll fire that into Cavalry. You can really see that loading state kick into gear. It's firing across. Now said to Cavalry, come across the Cavalry, it's doing its magic over here, and there we go. It takes a bit longer with this design because I have gone absolutely crazy with the amount of emojis to really showcase how well Quiver does at importing emojis. You can't import emojis in the current build. Cavalry doesn't support them. They're a little bit more complex to bring across. So if I toggle down here, you can see that I've got all my layers. Now I've got a bunch of emojis that are in a group here. If I click on this and see the outlines on each of them, and I can see that there's a bunch of basic shapes that have been created for them. This might be a little bit complex, but I'll explain it anyway. There's a get submesh transform. At the time of import, the logic calculates what submesh index that emoji would be, and then it maps it to that spot. And instead of bringing in the emoji Unicode, I have bracket E bracket. And if I click into this text shape, there's a apply text material where it's understanding the regex of where those instances are and then turning the alpha on them to 0. It allows the text shapes themselves to still remain dynamic. So if I start changing the alignment, the emojis are going to match. So you can see here I wasn't very clean with my file cleanup, and I've brought in 2 fills, which matches exactly what is in Figma. I've got the purple and the orange underneath. You'll also notice as well, if there's any text styling, Quiver will pick up on that and it will apply typeface and select those specific indices. So in this example, I've got canvas sans bold and it's understanding where that specifically is within the text shape. If I start adding in extra text to my string, it's going to work well if it's after the fact of everything else. If I start placing text within the middle, we'll start shifting. So you are going to have to recalculate those specific indices and then just line them up. There's some last features as well that I just want to talk about to end this video with. If you come up here, we've got horizontal text alignment and vertical text alignment. Now you might be wondering, why on earth do we need these? We have them down here in Cavalry already, but I'll show you the difference. The text shape is going to bounce around. You might have a design that you have in Figma and maybe the designer hasn't set the alignment the way that you want. You bring it into Cavalry, you're like, oh, that's not right. Try and change it, then you're going to have to move it back and align it again. Now we have this new button over here in Quiver, where it's going to do that for you. So as I cycle through, you can see that it's staying in place. I don't have to do any of that. And as I'm clicking, this position is changing as well. We also have this vertical text alignment option. So if I start clicking through, it's not shifting, but you can see in the vertical alignment toolbar in Cavalry that it's doing exactly as I expect. Nice, so that's Quiver 1.6. There is a bunch of more changes and bugs fixes that we've implemented as well. We often post updates in the Discord on Cavalry. And if you're not following on there, you can go to canvacreative.team/motion. There you'll find all our open source tools for Cavalry to make great motion design. Quiver will only get better with the community that we have around us. So it's super important to hear of any struggles or any ideas that you might have so that there's less friction, more motion when you're shooting those designs with Quiver.